I hate him, he hates me.
Okay.
He has kids, he has grandkids. I told him, guess who's gonna go with me?
Did you ever cheat in school? Or perhaps stole a chocolate bar from a store? Which of your misdeeds could you confess to?
My name is Knox, and today I'll show and tell you about cases when people confess to murders.
And at the end, you'll hear a heart-wrenching story about how a 12-year-old girl killed her 9-year-old brother. Enjoy watching. The first crime was committed in England, in the city of Chelmsford. In a quiet suburban area, an adult married couple was just lying in bed at home. It was late, and they were getting ready to sleep. But then, there was an unfamiliar noise in their house. The man decided to go and check what was happening. But as he approached the stairs, he was stabbed in the chest. He died from it. The strangest thing here is that nothing was stolen, and that meant the crime was intentional. Naturally, the house was sealed off, the police conducted an investigation, and medical assistance was provided to the victim. And at that moment, an unknown man with a bottle of brandy in his hand passed by the house. From his appearance, it was clear that the guy had drunk too much. Initially, the policeman thought he was just a regular drunkard, but here's what happened next.
Who are you looking for?
I'm looking for I can help.
Uniform one night?
No, I know what happened. I know the people they involved.
Go again.
But I need to dig deep.
Thank you. What's your name?
I'm not gonna tell you my name. I don't give a because I know what happened. And you need me to figure it out what happened. If you don't have me, you don't know what happened. I just know that some guy come here.
Yeah.
And he up some guy. You're gonna think about me, but it's not gonna be me because there's no proof.
In short, this guy apparently committed the crime. He passed by while drunk and wanted to do something to avoid suspicion. However, I think it would have been better to just keep walking. In any case, he was apprehended, and later, it turned out that he was the one who killed the man that night. How did they figure it out? Well, Marek Hecko, that was the killer's name, said he saw information about the murder on television. But by the time he arrived, there were no news reports about the incident in the public domain. As a result, he became the main suspect. He was sentenced to life imprisonment for murder. The next horrifying case happened in America, in the state of Kentucky. It was the autumn of 2022, a great time to walk with your family or spend time with your pets outside. You'd think nothing could ruin the mood for the whole town at such a beautiful time. But what happened shook the entire state. Amberly Nicole Harris was the most ordinary kind, free-spirited woman. It's also worth noting that her close friends and relatives simply adored her. And Nicole was also an excellent employee. According to her employer, she never missed a day of work. However, she did have a slight flaw. She was involved in various illicit substances. But even that didn't stop her from having a great time and being a great person. Until this happened. One day, for some reason, the girl didn't show up for work for 2 consecutive days. Her colleagues also lost contact with her. The possibility of her missing work already alarmed all her acquaintances. So they quickly called the police and social services. And what they discovered shocked everyone. I've already told you that Nicole Harris was involved in illicit substances, but there's a little clarification. She did it together with her boyfriend, Tommy Powell. I'll even tell you more. She lived together with this man. However, he wasn't a good guy. He had already been convicted of domestic violence. However, he only received a suspended sentence. Although if Nicole had admitted that her boyfriend was beating her, Tommy would have been behind bars. And maybe that would have saved her. Just look at these scenes. When the police arrived at Nicole's house, her boyfriend greeted them. And what he said shocked everyone.
Is Amberly here? Amberly? She passed away. What?
I shot her.
The police were puzzled by what was happening.
They decided to immediately arrest the man, and fortunately he didn't resist. And then they entered the house holding weapons, and there they found Amberly's body. She was lying in the bedroom next to the bed, dead. As it turned out later, Tommy had been sleeping next to the corpse for 2 days. Personally, I'm amazed that there was a dog next to the body, which was seriously frightened. Fear was evident in its eyes because it didn't understand what was happening. After searching the apartment, the police sealed off the building and the murderer himself was taken to the station for questioning. And when they learned all the details of such a terrible crime, everyone was horrified, and me included. As it turned out, Tommy just wanted to make money. He took out insurance on Amberly in case of her death, and apparently, he wanted to collect the payout by killing her.
How could such a thought even come to mind? Well, I think it's all about drugs.
They have a significant impact on a person's psychological state. Plus, Tommy had already been in trouble with the police because of domestic violence. As it turned out later, he was supposed to undergo anger management treatment, but he didn't. And the details of the case shock everyone. It was a typical family quarrel. During the use of illicit substances, Amberly, according to Tommy, began to insult him, call him trash, and generally behave unpleasantly. This enraged the man. He took out a 20-gauge shotgun and shot her. But personally, I don't believe that. Because, as I've already said, Tommy had taken out insurance on his girlfriend before this. It's entirely possible that he had long planned to commit this crime. In court, the defense tried to appeal on the grounds that the man had psychological issues. However, this still didn't help him avoid punishment. He had 2 counts of law violations in his case: murder and domestic violence. And for this, he faced a sentence of 25 to 50 years in prison, which at his age meant a death sentence. Well, in order to have a chance at parole, Tommy will have to spend at least 20 years in prison.
Next story about which I would like to tell you happened in the state of Michigan. And honestly, I'm just shocked by the reason for what happened.
So, 2 elderly men lived next door to each other. And all the time they lived next to each other, they quarreled. And it would have been nothing if the quarrels and the arguing hadn't crossed the line. One ordinary day, 79-year-old William Kruger called the police to his home. He reported that he had been attacked while he was cutting wood. And, as it turned out, his neighbor, 58-year-old Gregory Miller, almost bit him to death. It was a really terrible event. William was just cutting wood with his chainsaw, and at that moment, Gregory sneaked up on him from behind and started beating him. He almost immediately fell to the ground because the first blow was very strong. After that, he tried to crawl under the tractor to somehow save himself. However, the attacker pulled him out and continued to beat him. According to the victim, he was struck about 50 times until he lost consciousness. Whether his neighbor continued to beat him after he lost consciousness or stopped is not entirely clear. After the police listened to the whole story from the victim's mouth, they went to his neighbor's house, and what he said just shocks me. As it turned out, Gregory was diagnosed with prostate cancer. The diagnosis is very discouraging, and he directly told the police that he was going to kill his neighbor so that he wouldn't outlive him. When William described what happened, he also emphasized the phrase the attacker said to him.
He said he was going to kill him. But what caused the neighbor to contemplate such a terrible crime?
Is always making noise over next to my house. Tired of it. We don't get along. Okay. It's been going on, well, since I moved in. Not going to go away. I'm hoping in my heart that I hate him, he hates me.
Okay.
He has kids, he has grandkids. I told him, I know you see this on, when I go, I have prostate cancer. When I go, guess who's gonna...
I'm just struck by how this person wants to wreak havoc on his neighbor who has been bothering him all this time. But the scariest part is that he was planning to kill not only William, but all his relatives. He said this directly to the police when they were clarifying the details of what happened. As it turned out, it was not just about hatred, but also envy. Because the diagnosis given to Gregory was far from promising, and he couldn't allow his neighbor to continue living happily while he was dying from an incurable disease. In the end, Gregory was sentenced to 3 years in prison for the attack and attempted murder of his neighbor. I also found information that he was sentenced to probation, all because Gregory Miller posted bail of $1 million. So until the final verdict was reached, he could stay at home, albeit with restrictions. And if in this story it's clear who's right and who's guilty, in the next one... This story was extremely strange, and what's more, it happened quite recently. On March 27, 2023, an unknown man approached a police officer. He had a bottle of water in his hand and seemed very calm, but what he said to the police officer was shocking.
Hey,
What's going on?
I'm here to turn myself in.
Okay, what's going on?
I had an accident last night.
Okay.
I was showing an old friend of mine how to use this gun that she asked for, and it went off and it shot her in the chest. And I've been running around scared.
Or you just want to set your water right there?
Sure.
Just put yourself up there. You got any weapons on you right now?
No.
Okay, just put your hands behind your back for me.
The story unfolded in a very strange way. During the interrogation, Brian kept saying the same thing. He claimed his girlfriend needed a gun, but for what and why wasn't clear. The whole story initially seemed very odd to the police. Why didn't the man call 911 when it happened? Why did he decide to surrender a day later? And is he lying about what happened to avoid prison? All these questions remained unanswered. As further interrogation and a search of his apartment revealed, it was indeed an accident. However, it didn't happen exactly as Brian initially described. The suspect was indeed showing his girlfriend the gun, but for some reason, he ended up shooting her in the chest. Perhaps that was his original intention, as he showed no remorse for his girlfriend's death. Personally, it seems to me that he intentionally killed her. Brian E. Mason was sentenced to 8 years in prison, and I must say, I'm shocked by how short his sentence is. And it's all thanks to his cooperation with the police. Perhaps that was his plan all along. Now, the most heart-wrenching and strange story I've decided to save for last. In January 2023, something terrible happened. A 12-year-old girl fatally stabbed her 9-year-old brother. It's a very strange and tangled case. What made the girl commit such a crime? Why did she stab him with a knife? And who's to blame for this? I found answers to all these questions thanks to the footage from the camera worn by the police officer. As it turned out, the girl had been injuring herself with a knife for a long time, since she was 12. Apparently, she had some psychological issues if she did such terrible things. It's not clear whether she was trying to harm herself or not, but one thing is clear for sure. These problems could have arisen because of her family. During questioning, the girl's mother said that her daughter was just an ordinary, cheerful, good-natured girl. Yes, she argued with her brother, but it wasn't anything supernatural, just the usual disagreements within the family. And the mother didn't understand why her daughter decided to commit such a horrible act. But here, I would like to share my thoughts with you. It's important to consider that the girl had been cutting her arms for a long time. It's immediately visible in the video provided by the police. Even when she was arrested, she showed her wounds, including the one she got on the day of the crime. Apparently, in a fit of anger and hatred, she unwillingly fatally stabbed her brother. After all, right after that, she got scared and ran away from home. And during the arrest, she had a hysterical fit. Who is to blame for what happened? I think it's the girl's parents, because they could have driven her to such a terrible psychological state. In any case, the details of what happened are still being clarified, and the final answer to who is to blame has not yet been given. What do you think? Who is to blame for what happened? Write in the comments. Today, I've shown you cases where people confessed to committing a crime themselves. Perhaps some of them were real professionals of persuasion and managed to avoid serious punishment. And you know where else real professionals are needed? In our team! Friends, you have the opportunity to join our team. If you have skills in video editing, can voice videos in Russian, English, and other languages, or write interesting scripts, we'll be glad to work with you. Write to the Telegram bot, the link is in the description. And thank you for watching.